Dogs and Stingray are coming for you. This is Stephen Ray, a.k.a. Stingray, coming to you live from Tuscaloosa, Alabama.
I'm Heath Hopkins. I'm here in DeSoto County, Mississippi, right outside of Memphis, Tennessee.
I don't know if you want me to get mad. I don't know if you want me to get mean. I don't know if you want me to get rowdy, but that's what I'm about to do. Worst defense ever! We are Mississippi State! Fear the Bills!
How many chicken wings you eat in a sitting? And you just look, ballpark it. 4. What?
4 chicken wings, my.
Here we go, guys. Dobbs, back to pass. Launching the ball. Jennings, he's got it. Jennings, he's got it. Touchdown, Tennessee. They shock the Dogs in Sanford Stadium. Are you kidding me? My God almighty. What an epic way for the Tennessee-Georgia rivalry to end this game. What a play. Wow. And Heath, any final thoughts before we sign off here on the Tide 100.9?
It is great to be on with all the great folks in Tuscaloosa. And hey, if you don't like it, you better learn to love it, because this is going to be the best show going today, baby.
And with that, guys, we say welcome into this special edition of the Stingray Show Arch Manning reaction. And so earlier this morning, it was announced that Arch Manning is actually going to be a Texas Longhorn, and I've got quite a little bit of something to say about that, but I'm going to hold off because we've actually got a special guest joining me here in just a second to give his take on it, and he is actually a reporter from TigerBait.com down in LSU, and he has covered this guy quite a lot. So without further ado, here is Preston Guy to give us his take on the Arch Manning situation. Preston, how are you doing today? Oh, we're having a little bit of issues with Preston there. We are having a little bit of issues with Preston there, and so he is going to rejoin, but you gotta love technical difficulties. But, honestly, I've got to say I am very surprised by Arch Manning going to Texas. And the reason that I am very, very disappointed and shocked by this is simply because you chose a team that lost to Kansas last year at home. Preston, now you are with us. Your thoughts on Arch Manning joining the Texas Longhorns?
Well, I can't really say it's shocking to me. Of course, for a good part of the last 6 months, the buzz has been Georgia and Texas for Arch. And last week, his teammate, Newman tight end Will Randall, who was formerly committed to LSU under Ogeron, committed to Texas. And I knew that Randall was pretty high on LSU, and my gut told me that if he were to be committing to Texas, it probably has something to do with the fact that Arch is saying, hey, come with me, let's be a package deal, let's go to Texas. So from the moment Will Randall made the commitment, I could have told you that Texas would be your front runner. So I'm a little surprised to see it come this soon. I talked to Arch's coach this last 2 weeks ago at the 7-on-7 camp at LSU, and they, respectfully declined interviews until he was done taking all of his visits,
Right.
Which to me made me think he was going to take his rounds of OVs and then make his decision. But I guess why waste time? Why focus on this going into your senior season when you already know? So hey, congrats for Texas pulling a quality young man.
Yes. Well, do you feel like he is the number one overall pick?
Well, let me put it to you like this. I think he's a very good quarterback.
Right.
I don't like to bash kids, and
Yes.
anytime you've got a kid who's rated the unanimous number one overall player in the country,
Mm-hmm.
you can only go down from there, right?
Right. Yeah.
So he's not asking for all this hype either.
Right.
So I'm going to say he's a good quarterback.
Yes.
I think he's one of the top 10 quarterbacks in the country.
Right.
I don't think he's developed into what is right now the best player in the country.
Right.
In fact, I think he's neck and neck with another Baton Rouge, or I'm sorry, I say Baton Rouge, but a Baton Rouge quarterback from Woodlawn who's committed to Purdue here.
Right.
He's also, there's another quarterback in Baton Rouge, Eli Holstein going to Bama, who I think are both, I think Eli Holstein's the best quarterback in the state this year.
Yes.
And he's more athletic, throws the ball further, has put up more yards with Zachary High School. So I'm not sure that Arch is even the best in Louisiana,
Right.
much less the best overall player in the country unanimously. I think he's good. I don't think he's one of the best prospects in the history of recruiting rankings. I haven't seen that yet out of him.
Right.
I'm not saying you can't develop into that, but good player nonetheless.
Right. But, what really shocks me, though, and yes, I get it, Preston, it's all about this right here. It's all about the NIL deal. I get that. But Peyton didn't win a national championship. Eli didn't win a national championship. You have a chance, if you pick the right school, to win a national championship. And if you look at the Texas roster right now, they are nowhere near a caliber team to even compete for a national championship. And I would even argue this, with all of the turmoil that has happened down there in your neck of the woods, I would actually say that LSU has a better chance of winning the national championship with Arch before Texas does.
Yeah.
That's why I'm so surprised by it.
Yeah, I get where you're coming from there. I've heard some people say that Sarkisian just connects well, and they feel like he's a good guy to develop the skill set that Arch has. It was just a good fit situation for the offense he runs and the skill set that Arch does bring to the table.
Mm-hmm.
And I tend to agree that LSU is in better shape to compete with a national title than Texas. But I will say this: I don't think NIL necessarily played a role in this one. I think it plays a role for a lot of kids. But you got to understand how much money is in that Manning family.
Yes.
They are not lacking at all. And Cooper, his father's doing just fine for himself as well. It seems like you can't turn on your TV without seeing a commercial with all three of those guys in there.
Yes.
Archie. So you got Archie, Eli, Peyton, who all, made tons of money in the NFL as quarterbacks. I don't think NIL played a role here, which is, almost anytime you see one of those Texas schools get a player, that's probably the first thing anybody's going to say. But I'm not sure that that's the case. I just think that I think he just liked the school, and that's why he's going there. Unfortunately, Arch has been tighter to the vest than any recruit I've ever covered in terms of doing interviews and talking about schools and the recruiting process. They've been extremely tight-lipped. I've been trying for 4 years to get an interview out of a kid. They just talk to me, and they've dodged me every time. So it's hard to say really what's on his mind, but he must have liked something that they're doing there in Texas. A little surprising to see him go to a school that's having trouble breaking through the 8-9 win mark.
Right. Now, I want to pick your brain about this because I honestly feel this way too. I really feel like the reason that Georgia and Kirby Smart did not get Arch Manning was simply for one reason. Yes, they won the national championship, but look at all the 5-star quarterbacks that have been brought into the program and have transferred out. Your thoughts on that?
That's a good thought there for sure. I would argue it probably has more to do with the system at Georgia, because if you think about it, Georgia won a national championship unlike any team had done so in the last 10 years. Like literally, it had been 10 years since we saw that 2011 Alabama team with that elite defense and a quarterback who was, I know A.J. McCarron went on to become an elite quarterback for the next 2 years at Bama, but his sophomore year, he was not a throw it all around, 30-plus touchdown guy yet. It was very conservative. Well, that's what Georgia did this year. They kicked everybody's ass on defense, and they made the plays they needed on offense, just like we saw in the SEC 10 years ago. And I almost wonder if that offense it wasn't what Arch wanted to play in. I see Sarkisian's system being, very much so more quarterback friendly.
Yes.
Even though it was his first year at Texas and it didn't quite go the way he wanted it, I think that system is something that he sees himself being able to thrive in. And I think another factor is, he could see himself being the guy at Texas pretty soon. They got Quinn Ewers there, and we'll see, how long he's in town for. But I think one of the things at Georgia is, when you go to Georgia, they're going to have a 5-star guy right on your heels pretty quickly.
Right.
So, maybe he thought that there was just, I think there's a combination of system, depth chart, and just in general liking the school.
Yes. All right, so before we get out of here, based off of the announcement right now, what % chance would you give Arch Manning of winning a national title at Texas? Me, I'm going to go 5% at best.
5%?
And that's really disappointing, though, when you're willing to trade, notoriety and all of that for the potential of winning a ring.
Let's preface this and say, think about this. If you've got 5% odds, it's 1 in 20, right?
Yeah.
I mean, how many teams are going to win a championship? And basically, there's only one school you can commit to, and there's a 100% chance that if you stay 4 years, you're going to win a championship. And that's Alabama. That's it. So you figure Alabama will probably win half the championships before he's gone. Just statistically speaking, since Saban's been there, he's won half the championships darn near.
Yes.
So I mean, you take those off the table, and you've only got 1 or 2 chances best there, and I'd say Texas is a long shot compared to a lot of teams, and I'm very interested to see. Texas has struggled in the Big 12 over the last since they lost to Bama in the national championship in 2009. I'm curious to see how they adapt to the SEC, which will be, it should be much more rigorous than the Big 12.
Oh, yeah. And, this just adds a lot more pressure to Texas now with that Week 2 matchup between Alabama and Texas coming up this season.
Yeah, and I talked to one of my Texas influencer buddies, who his first comment about when they landed Arch Manning is, "We better win some damn football games."
Yes.
Because that is, whether you like it or not, whether he's worth it or not, you sign the unanimous #1 overall recruit in the country, and his last name is Manning. That's going to put an enormous spotlight on your program, and you better be ready. Let me liken this to something for you. At LSU, I worked in the athletic communications department there while we had a player named Ben Simmons for the basketball program. #1 player in the country.
Yes.
And although they brought in other 5-star players and that team was loaded on talent, they did not make the NCAA tournament. And
Right.
that was really, really bad for the program's exposure because,
Yes.
I mean, you sit there and you have headlines. The first program since 1976 with the number one NBA draft pick to not make the NCAA tournament.
Right.
And that's bad for your program. And I guess Texas has been through their number of bad headlines, but they've also kind of had their ups and downs during that time.
Yes.
You know, I think about they won the Sugar Bowl a couple years back.
Yeah.
You know, I just you got to be ready for that because there's not going to be a bigger spotlight around any singular player
Right.
than him. I remember Leonard Fournette coming to LSU,
Yep.
and the spotlight around him was just enormous. Just this enormous magnifying glass around the program, even bigger than usual
Yes.
because of him. And I imagine Arch Manning being a quarterback named Manning and unanimous number one recruit, not consensus like Leonard was, unanimous.
Yes.
I imagine that spotlight will be massive.
And the last thing I will say before we get out of here, Preston, is now that he is committed to Texas, and if he does stay at Texas, the anticipation and the excitement is going to be throughout the roof, and people are going to expect by the second year and the third year that Arch plays for Texas to actually compete and win the Big 12. And that's going to be rather interesting.
We'll see. We'll see. I wonder if they even stick in the Big 12 after this next year because I think
Yes.
back to Texas A&M, they made their announcement and bought themselves out early to come to the SEC because it's just one of those things where
Yes.
it's kind of a bad taste for your program. Like, yeah, we're competing for the Big 12 right now, but we're about to leave. So I wonder if Arch will ever even play in the Big 12.
Right.
I know on paper 2025, man. I bet you it happens sooner than that.
Yes. I got you. Well, Preston, look, thank you for joining me on such short notice. And any final thoughts on this breaking news?
Man, just keep on watching. A lot of great quarterbacks coming out of Louisiana this year. I think a lot of these kids, also in addition to Arch Manning, are going to define college football here in the next few years. Ricky Collins, Eli Holstein, Arch Manning, even a kid named Reese Mooney at Denham Springs. All those guys are going to be doing big things in college football. Stay tuned, y'all.
And hopefully, some of those guys can actually go to LSU.
We'll see, man. It's actually looking like none of them.
I know.
It's looking like LSU's not going to get any one of them, except for maybe Reese Mooney. But LSU's in on 2 5-star quarterbacks right now.
Yes.
Not notably, Dante Moore is probably who they have number one in their board from
Yes.
Midwest. So we'll see. I would expect Brian Kelly will pull down a quality quarterback.
Yes. Look, man, thank you so much, and stay cool, my friend, and we will talk closer to the football season, okay?
All right. See you later, Steven.
Thank you, man. So once again, Arch Manning is going to the Texas Longhorns. He committed earlier this morning. It has really shot through social media. It's all blowing up. But like I said, I am really kind of disappointed that Manning would choose to go to Texas, especially, like I've said over and over and over, where there is a roster there at the University of Texas that did lose to the University of Kansas last year. So there's got to be a lot of a big turnaround and a lot of a building job here really quick if they intend to not only keep Arch Manning, but to also compete once he gets on the field there in Austin. Guys, we hope that you guys have enjoyed this Arch Manning reaction video, and we are out.